Susan, would you like to introduce your guest, please?
I would. So this is Natalie Muller.
Hello, Natalie.
Hello.
How wonderful.
Natalie Muller is the founder of Cockie Press, an ebook publishing company. It focuses on publishing new fiction written by emerging authors. Today we're going to be talking about how her publishing company operates and also about her newest title, Scum of the Universe. We'll also be talking about Natalie's Editor-in-Residence program, which she runs in partnership with the Blue Mountains Library. Welcome, Natalie Muller.
Hello, thank you. Nice to be here.
Natalie, I'd like to start by talking about the process of getting published. Okay. Imagine I want to write a novel. Mm-hmm. You offer a creative writing course, don't you? Tell us a little about that.
Okay. Because what I do is entirely digital, I decided to write a creative writing course that was delivered digitally. So it runs for 8 weeks, or it could run for 4 months. Really, it's very, very flexible. If you wanted to do it very, very fast, you could do it across about 16 days.
So is it interactive?
It is interactive. So I send out each lesson, and then the workshop pieces are then sent back, which I then give feedback on. So it just allows people who maybe don't have time to go to a physical place, who only have time in the evenings or once or twice a week, to be able to access that resource rather than having to, try and find that time, because a lot of people are very, very busy, and people who are emerging writers who've not been published are generally writing in and around their work, in and around their life. So I want to be able to facilitate that.
Right. Okay. So I could do that first before I do anything else. Okay. So now I have the beginnings of a novel.
Okay.
I understand I can send it to you for a work in progress assessment. Is that right?
Yes, I do. I offer readers' reports. Readers' reports are basically, you've got a manuscript. Mm-hmm. You have given your manuscript to friends, to
But wait,
relatives.
what if I've only got the beginnings of a manuscript?
If you've only got the beginnings of a manuscript, that's also something I can look at.
Right.
Generally, it is you get a better result with a complete manuscript that you have worked on and has been read by somebody else, to give you some feedback. But if you've got completely and utterly stuck and you have no idea, I can also read that and give you an idea of where you might go or what's working, what's not working. Generally speaking, writers know this. They just need someone who can say what it is.
Yeah.
If you've had, a lot of people have a case of they've given their manuscript to people have read it, they've said, it's good. And it's that waver in their voice that makes you know, this isn't good. I don't know what it is, and they don't have the language to tell me what the problem is.
And they don't know themselves
exactly
how to do it, how to fix it.
Yes, and so that's what I can offer. Someone who has the language, who's not in a direct relationship with you, so therefore I can be unbiased, and who can give you that assistance. It's not about saying your writing is good or bad. It's about saying these are the things that are going to get in your way.
Right.
Yes.
I saw that on one of your YouTube tutorials that you said most first novels are about you.
Yes.
And so it's probably better to put it in the bottom drawer and come back to it in a little while.
Yes.
I thought that was really interesting because that's true.
Yes. People often don't realise how much they reveal about themselves in their first manuscript, even if it's a complete fantasy, something that they've, thought, it's pure fantasy. And if you go back and you read that in 5 years, you'll realise, oh no, I said so much about myself. I'm so glad nobody read this. So you often use that first novel to get stuff that's been in your head out.
Yeah.
It's a learning process. Stick it under the bed. Write it, stick it under the bed, work on a new one. That'll be the one.
Now, is there any particular way I should present my manuscript? As a Word document sent as an email attachment or as a hard copy?
Well, because my company is digital, I take things as digital copies.
Right.
So a Word document as an attachment is what you send me. There are different things for other publishers, but for me, it's all digital, because if you send me a hard copy, that's fine, but I'm going to have a digital one if I want it.
Sure.
So there does need to be that digital, and it's expensive to send a hard copy.
Yes.
It's much, much cheaper to just send it digital
Yeah.
one. So you send the first 50 pages of a manuscript, you send a synopsis, and you send a cover letter. Those three things are very, very important, because I need to know where the story is going in total. I don't need to see the entire script. I just need the first 50 pages. If I want to see the entire thing, I'll ask for the rest.
Right.
And a cover letter, because this is a business transaction. You need to be able to write a business letter.
Right.
Even if it doesn't have to be long. It's just who you are, what this is.
So if I've sent you the beginnings of my novel and you've said, this is what I suggest, and then I keep working on it and I come up against writer's block, can I then send it to you? You've got a mentoring service,
Yes.
so is that what will happen if I send it to you and say, these are the problems I'm having?
Yep, absolutely. So the mentoring service is an hour long. You just ring up, you book an hour. I'll meet you at a cafe or somewhere that you're comfortable with. Generally, we go for a cafe, and it's entirely client-led. So I don't come to tell you what to do. You say, I'm having these problems. What would you do with that? And it may be one session, it may be progressive sessions, working on different elements of a piece. It's entirely what works for you. So if you're having a particular problem, I've hit a block, I need some help with this, I'd probably ask, can you send me what you've written so I can read it, so I know what you're after, and then that's what we'll talk about. It's a lot of writer's block is a case of that there's a problem, but you need someone else to help you understand where the problem started, because it didn't start where you got stuck. It's like bad plumbing in a building. If the plumbing's bad, there's no point continuing with the rest of the building. You know it's bad. You know something has gone wrong deep down. Your best option is, once you work out something's gone wrong, rip it out, put it in again.
Right.
Don't keep building on top, because it'll just wreck the whole thing.
So, Natalie, your reader's report. So when I'm sending you my manuscript,
Yeah.
when you do your report, when
Yes.
you're looking at and assessing it, does that include a structural edit? I mean, do you suggest moving chapters around and cutting or expanding text, that sort of thing?
It really depends on the manuscript, but if, for instance, I have if you see something that is just not working, that is getting in the way of the reader's readability or comprehension, because that's what I'm offering that's what a reader's report really offers, is this is how it reads. This is how it reads to somebody who knows nothing about it, do I understand what you're trying to across? So I will look at things like how it's constructed. I'll look at things like whether or not you're using grammatical things that get in the way. Like for instance, I think one of the biggest ones that I notice is the number of people who try to come up with alternatives for said.
Right.
Said is beautiful. It's virtually invisible to a reader. When you start coming up with commanded, whispered, exclaimed, instantly I see it and it's like, I don't want to see that. I don't need to see that. It's getting in my way as a reader. So I'll look at anything that gets in the way as a reader to the ability for that text to be comprehensible. So if you have something that's non-linear and I've just read it and got very, very confused, then I'm going to suggest maybe we make this linear again.
Right.
So it's whatever is based on the manuscript that, these are the things that work. These are the things that don't work. So don't touch these. Please, dear God, don't touch the things that work. The number of people who will touch the things that work. And then you're like, why did you do that? Please don't do that. No, these are the things. These are the things that you need to work on. So these are the things that are hampering understanding. So it's all about understanding whether something is under-researched or whether something is just confusing to a reader. These are the sorts of things that I'll look at.
And suggest changes to.
Yes.
And if you're reading a manuscript and you're working on it and doing your job on it, but you don't want it, do you say that up front, or do you, if you say, look, it's just not the sort of book that I want to publish, or?
Well, the manuscript assessment is separate from the manuscript submission.
Right.
So if you're submitting to the publishing company, that's a full submission. If you're getting an assessment done, that's a paid service.
Right.
So they are both, they're different piles.
Right. So it doesn't really, one doesn't affect
No,
the other.
no. So
Right.
I may not want to publish that particular book, but I will give you an assessment
Right.
that will show you where it needs help, where it doesn't need help, so that when you take it somewhere, it's in the best presentable place. If someone sends me a manuscript as a submission and I look at it and I really like it, but I know that it needs a bit of work, I'm not then going to charge them for an assessment. That's part of being published. That's one of the things about publishing unknown or emergent writers is the manuscripts aren't perfect. They're not like the manuscripts that you would get from a David Malouf or someone like that. You get a rougher manuscript, so therefore it needs a bit more work. So, for instance, Scum of the Universe, the book that the company just has out, that I had to go through that and take tons of copyright material out of it.
Right.
Because the writer, he was unpublished, so therefore he didn't know that you can't use brand names.
Right.
You can't use brand names. You can't use things that are in other copyrighted books or franchises or whatever. So that was the biggest thing that we had to do with that was, okay, I love it, but we've got to get all rid of this because we'll get sued. And so, so it is different working with less experienced writers. They have problems that perhaps someone who's more experienced won't have.
Yes.
So
yes, and obviously some of them must take a huge amount of work. Even if you think, look, this is a good book, I love the story.
Yeah.
But quite often writers have appalling spelling and don't understand punctuation at all.
Yeah.
And change tenses in the middle of a sentence and so on.
Yes, so there's more of that sort of work can go into it. Yes.
Okay, so my book is written. and I send you the manuscript.
Yep.
Then what happens? So there's. Can I just ask about editing, typography, cover design, the blurb, also publicity?
Yeah. So you send the manuscript and I like it. So I'll then ask you for the full thing. Once I've read it, decided I'd like to publish it, I will offer you a contract. So the contracts that I use come from the ASA. So that's the Australian Society of Authors. So they're proper contracts. I then we will go to edit it, and this can involve it going backwards and forwards as we iron out all these bumps. While it's being edited, I am also thinking, okay, what kind of cover am I going to put on this? So I'm going to be looking at photo sites. I'm going to be looking at type sites to find the right font, the right imagery. So that all needs to be designed. That's something that is done in-house.
Do you do the typography yourself?
Yes.
The laying out of the book? Right.
Yep. Yes, the laying out is one of the last jobs. Laying out for an ebook is really specific. It's quite technical because ebooks are not really print books in electronic form. They are actually their own technology. We don't understand exactly what the technology is yet, but I have to do the layout to fit the algorithms on the distributor's site, so that's all set. But I also have to make sure that the hyperlinks work. These books are interactive in a way that print books aren't. And because of that, we don't actually know what an ebook should look like. When ebooks came out, they absolutely terrified traditional publishing. Traditional publishing thought, oh my goodness, these things are going to eat us alive. They're going to take over everything. Nobody's going to buy print books. So, which is a completely understandable thing. They had a lot of money invested into print books. But what that has meant over the past 10 years that ebooks have been around is while ebooks get put out by traditional print publishers, they are literally an electronic copy of the book that is put out in print. Often they're not hyperlinked, which is an especially annoying thing when it comes to textbooks. Although it would cost a fortune to hyperlink the index, that is totally what you need for an ebook. Because you can't search through an ebook the same way you can search through a physical book. So I hyperlink the chapters, which makes it much easier to move through the book.
Right.
And I'm really interested in a book that can only exist as an ebook. I don't know what that would look like. Not entirely. But if somebody wants to write one, something that has to exist in a digital space, I really want to see it. I'm not saying it has to be science fiction, but something that has to exist in a digital-only space. I think it would probably be a fairly postmodern book. I don't know what it would look like, but I really want to know what it is.
I don't really know what you mean by that.
No, because I've actually written 2 books and I've got. They're in hard copy, but they're also ebooks. But they are obviously, it's as you say, it's obviously the hard copy made into an ebook, but not, as you've said. And so this is a whole different sort of.
It is. I sort of imagine it's a bit like going back to when novels were created in the first place, because novels superseded the epic narrative poem. So that used to be how we told big stories. Then we had novels. And when you look at the really early novels, the novels of the 18th century, don't look like what they've become now, because they were strange and new, and they look like that. So they do things that we don't do in novels now. For instance, Tristram Shandy. Tristram Shandy is unreadable without the notes. That is a perfect book to hyperlink together. So I think actually, in some ways, ebooks can go back to that earlier tradition.
Okay, so we haven't got a lot of time left, but I want to ask you about your work as editor-in-residence at the Blue Mountains Library. So you offer writing assistance sessions. What do they involve?
Well, that was something I was very cheeky in about 2013, and went into the library and said, "Would you like to have an editor-in-residence?" And they said, "Well, what would that entail?" And I said, "Well, it would entail me coming and spending a day, a month. It's now every 2 months, just allowing people to bring a manuscript or bring their questions about writing." So I had started doing the manuscript assessment and the mentoring, and I really wanted to use it as a way for people to get a taster. So at the library, people bring at most 3,000 words, basically. I stop reading at 3,000 words. If they bring more, I'm sorry, I've stopped reading at 3,000 words. And they can book an hour or a half-hour session, and I'll give feedback on their manuscript. Generally, it's very similar to what I do when I do a reader's report, but in a very small way.
Intimate.
Yes.
Way too.
Sometimes it's questions. Sometimes it is how do I approach a publisher? How does this whole business work? So I sometimes when people don't bring in manuscripts, they bring in questions, and that can be quite. I have no idea what is going to be asked, so it keeps me on my toes.
You've got a session this Saturday, November 17, and you've told me that's completely booked out.
I think so. I believe it is, yes. We are starting again next year. The library's been very happy with it, so it's been 5 years now, so next year will be 6 years.
Excellent. That sounds like
It's good.
That sounds like a really good thing. Now, I wanted to ask you, I know it's probably a sliding scale, but how much does it actually cost an author to come to you with their submission for all the work that you do on it?
Okay, so if they are submitting as a manuscript to be published, that doesn't cost anything. I am a traditional publisher. I'm a digital publisher, but it's a traditional way.
So you give them royalties?
I take all the cost of producing the book. I pay royalties, and basically, if you don't sell, I don't make any money.
Right.
So it's traditional publishing. I take the risk, not the author, as opposed to vanity presses where the author pays a whole load of money, and then because the publisher has made the money, they don't sell the book because they have no incentive to. So if they're publishing, that doesn't cost anything. If somebody wishes to have a reader's report, that I charge by word count. So my highest fee is $850, and that is for a manuscript of about 150,000 words or more. I think the lowest fee is $200. It's on my website with exactly how many words and what the fee is. So it jumps in based on how many words, because it's based on how long it takes me to do the work. Mentoring is $50 an hour.
Okay. So where can readers buy your books?
Where can readers buy my books? I have links on my website, which is blackcockiepress.com.au. They are also available on the Angus and Robertson website. So just Google either Scum of the Universe or Poisoning the Nest. Those are the two that I have out at the moment. And if you put those into Angus and Robertson, they will come up. If you put them into Google, they will come up, and they'll probably come up via Smashwords, which is the distributor.
Right.
So they can buy them from there too.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Natalie. It's
Thank
been
you.
a real pleasure
That was very
talking to you.
informative, wasn't it? That was very good.
It was. It was.
So at least people know now that although they can't see you on the 17th because it's booked out, that they can come along next year
Yes.
and and have their work assessed and take it from there.
And asking questions about how do I approach a publisher, those sort of questions are really, really good answered.
Yes.
Yeah.
I saw that there was a need for something in between a creative writing class and Varuna, because there's a big gap in between. So that's where I sit.
Because when people start out, they don't often even know the questions to ask.
No, exactly.
Yes.
And they don't want somebody who's going to sit there in judgment going, oh, yes, well, So that's a great service.